Well, next up we have Jamie, and S scale really is an ideal scale. It's right in the middle of things. So I'm going to just say you win.
I hope you I hope you notice in the last slide in the video that there's a Monon BL2 down in the corner
There you
since it's BL2 night.
go. I'll get out my N scale one and hold it in my hand.
There you go. All right, so Tom told you that I was going to continue my series on Pullman cars, but I thought you might want a little break from Pullman cars, so I decided to whip something else up. I'm going to show you how I laid some track. So let's see. There we go. Laying track on my new layout. You can probably imagine from many of my other segments that my layout will definitely feature some uh, passenger car traffic. So I like to call it station in main, sort of like corner where the station would be, the Union Station or whatever station in the city that I'm modeling. So that's the working title of my layout is Station in Maine. The town is Ellsworth, Indiana. So anyway, uh, in the past, I have been a little troubled by laying ties around corners, on curves, and so I didn't get a nice smooth flow of the ties, when you tape them in a jig in the straight bit, and then try to bend them around the corner. So I decided to use my laser cutting talents to cut myself a tie jig that's on a radius, and so again, being a passenger car guy in S scale, the 60-inch radius is sort of my large size radius. And then I figure the next track in will be 57. So I cut those two and figured that I could, if I needed something a little bigger, a little smaller, I could bend it from there. But that's my tie jig. Now, you'll notice that every fifth tie or every sixth tie, I guess it is, let's see, one, two, three, four, five. Yeah, every sixth tie, there's a space. And that's because I'm using printed circuit board ties in there and soldering the ties down to the rail. So that space in there is for the put the printed circuit board tie in. And so what I did was I would lay the ties into the jig, put the tape on them. I used about that much of a turn had about three pieces of tape on it, and then lay those down into the glue, spread some carpenter's glue on there, and then come back later and glue the printed circuit ties into the spaces. So you can see there, that's what we got going there. So there's the first corner of my layout, and it's ducking into staging. You can see the hole in the sky back there where the layout's going to go into staging. And then you can see too I've glued the printed circuit ties in there. There's the couple of printed circuit ties and point them out. Okay. There's another view of the ties. There's the stain that that I used to do the ties. What I did was these are, you can see, min-max water-based. I thinned them down with a little bit of alcohol. I've done it a couple of different ways, but my favorite is used to black. I forget, I just call it black. I think it's what do they call it? Ebony. I think it's ebony. And then the brown I think might be walnut, but I forget which colors exactly. So anyway, I think my favorite way to do it is I thin it down pretty thin with 90% alcohol, and then I put on the coat of the black, and then I come back later and put on a coat of the brown. Again, thinned out, and that seems to be the best combination. I tried some with do the black first and some would do the brown first, and it seems like doing the black first gives a better color, a color I like better. So there you can see the tie stained. Of course, the PC ties are not they haven't been dealt with yet. I got to come back. I'm still trying to work out a way to paint those to sort of have them match the ties. Um, those ties in the foreground were done with the black first and the brown later. The ones further back were done with the brown first and the black later. You can't see those all that well. So, but there's the two parallel tracks all stained up, ready for rail. And there's a close up of the kind of color I'm getting out of those. So I think it's pretty decent. I'd like something maybe a little more gray, but I don't know. We'll see what I can do. There's my soldering setup. I got this from oh gosh, I forget the name of the place, but it's a really nice. It heats up super fast, and it's got a really fine tip on it. again, maybe I need a bigger tip. I watched a guy soldering brass locomotives in Japan, and he didn't even have he just had an iron he held like by the stove, but it was really big, so it stayed hot, I guess was the trick. But I like it. It heats up super fast. So, and you can see it's got three preset temperatures, but I usually just use super hot. So, okay. So here we are laying the first rail in place. Actually was doing this evening. The soldering iron's probably still warm downstairs. So that's the first rail. I slapped it down there and soldered it to all the PC ties. And just like you'd spike a rail every six, you like if you're hand laying track, you might spike the rail every six ties. I just solder the rail every six ties, and that tends to keep it fairly straight, fairly well in place or whatever. It does enough of a job. Okay. There's a couple of track gauges in place. All right, so I'm using these 3-point gauges to lay it out. Those are for code 100. This is code 100 rail. So I'm just laying it out and soldering it down. And let's see if I go to the next one. And there it is. That's the current view. That's the way it looked when I left, when I walked upstairs at 7 o'clock this evening. That's what it looked like. So there you go. I just soldered that rail right down tonight. Everything was done other than the rail, but I I did it. I did come home today from school and solder rail, so I could make a presentation about it. So I maybe we'll get back to Pullman cars in the near future, but I also have another little passenger car surprise that I'm going to work on and try to present in not too much of it, one of these segments. I'm trying to get Andy Millette back on to show us a little more about his railroad, but I just thought maybe he needed a break from Pullman cars, so I showed you how I laid.
Jamie, Tom Farrell here. Tell
Hi.
us, did you rip those ties yourself? Where'd you get the ties? Just
No, the
curious.
ties are I bought some from Clover House and some from oh, what's the other place that makes ties? I forget the name of it right off.
Northeastern or Mount Albert.
Mount Albert. Yeah, some of them are Mount Albert. So,
And
and
your rail, where do you get the rail?
the rail is micro engineering. I've just picked it up here and there, over the years. So, it's been my railroads are long time building, so been a while since I bought rail.
And it
So.
looks
So,
like you have Homosote underneath all that. Is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah, that's Homosote roadbed, and then that's just on Luan plywood. So,
And you're just gluing the Homosote down with a wood glue or
yep,
how?
yep, just the carpenter's glue, same stuff that I glued the ties down with. So, and then
Jamie,
Ja-
do you,
Ja-
Jamie, do you
Jamie,
have a thickness difference between the board ties and the ties?
there does seem to be a slight difference between the board ties and the PC ties. These I bought these PC ties from uh, uh, oh, no, what's his name? I can't remember. God,
Clover House,
don't get old. The
Clover out, Clover House,
No, the turnout
or
guy up in Canada.
Fast Tracks.
Fast Tracks, right. I bought him from Fast Tracks, the PC ties. And um, the ties he was selling with his turnouts were thinner. And so those you definitely have to shim. But then he started selling these like regular track ties, and they're considerably thicker. So they're a little bit, they're much closer to the size of the ties. But I have found I had to shim them a little bit, maybe like I put a piece of paper. Literally, there's one piece of paper under each of those PC ties, just a little, a tie-sized piece of paper under there to sort of jack them up a little bit. I figured that as
Is this,
opposed to sanding them down.
have you hand laid rail before? Is this your first effort or?
No, I actually this bench work that you're looking at was actually supporting another railroad, as recently as maybe last year. And so that I had soldered, I'd used all the same techniques. That was my little branch line railroad. So that one had code 83 rail or code 70 rail. I forget. I think code 70 rail mostly. And so I had basically done the same process. I just change my plan around a little bit. It's the goal was to build this layout and another layout, and I decided to focus more on this layout and uh, you know put it where it was a little more easy to get at and whatnot. So I I ripped out the other railroad was giving me some problems. If the plan here is to go to dead rail, and if I would have run the other railroad with dead rail, it probably would still be going, but I was having some pickup issues, and so I just thought, oh, the heck with it, I'm going to just tear it out and start again. So that's what I did. So yeah, I've done some. I also have a
Well-
couple of 4-foot modules that are just straight track, so just 4 feet of track. It's just 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 two rails down 8 feet of track that's soldered in place. So I've done this for a while.
Are your turnouts going to be fast track?
Yes, yes, they are.
Okay.
So
Oh,
Jamie, this is Phil.
hi.
So, I've used that brown earth, from Rust-Oleum. It's the camouflage paint.
Right, I was thinking that
And,
very same thing.
I just spray the whole thing because I tend to use more, in the ON30, tend to use more of the flex track.
Right.
What you can do after you spray that, and I can put some pictures on it if there's interest, you basically can use pan pastels to color them. I
Okay.
actually at one point was doing it with an airbrush. I'd built a mask. If you took your drawing and reversed it out and cut out just where those ties are, you could make a mask and then spray them with the earth tone.
Yeah.
And then you're probably going to paint the rails, so you just paint across whatever gets sprayed there. And then
Yeah,
you can
you know
just touch it.
what might work is to put make a mask that would sort of sit into the middle of the track,
Right.
and then you
Or
could
you
just
could just
spray the
tape them.
rail.
You can just get some masking tape out and just masking tape them off on either side.
Yeah, you could do that too. I was just thinking then you just spray the rail and
Yeah.
mask off the ties that are already covered and then just spray everything else. I was
Yeah.
actually thinking of something very much like that just the other day. I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's one
I,
of those camo paints out there that would be a good color for rail.
and it works really well. It works really well just to spray. I just spray everything and then come back with the pan pastels, and that gives you different coloration in the ties because you actually
Yeah, yeah.
control it with the pan pastel. You just put them on with a pop brush. So
I am
anyway, enough
hoping
said.
I am hoping that the oh, I was going to say something I forget. Anyway, I did find a product. Somebody recommended a product to me, like they're rail joiners, but they look like joint bars. So they've got like the simulated bolts in them. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's a rail joiner to put, to join the two pieces of rail, but it looks like it's got the bolts that would hold it together like on a real railroad. So I need to order a few of those, and try those out because they look pretty interesting. And then what I would like to do is I have some tie plates. Somebody was selling like cast resin tie plates, and ultimately what I'd like to do is go along and like probably just cut them in half because when you look at this railroad, you're really not going to be able to see the back of the rail. So I'm going to try to just cut these tie plates in half and then glue them onto the front side of the rail so you can get a little more detail on the track. So that's kind of my plan, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, thank you, Jamie. It was a very interesting segment this evening. It is
Oh,
people that do. I've never attempted hand laying, but maybe someday I will.
okay.
Great job. Very
All right,
nice.
thank you. Thanks for
We'll see.
having me.
Well, thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Right.